Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has said the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz will last as long as it takes. The blockade aims to stop ships using Iranian ports. The US says 14 vessels have been forced to turn around since it began on Monday. In Lebanon, Israeli airstrikes have destroyed a key bridge linking the south with the rest of the country.
At the direction of President Trump, the War Department will ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. Never. We'd prefer to do it the nice way, through a deal led by our great vice president and negotiating team, or we can do it the hard way. We urge this new regime to choose wisely.
Face à la misère.
Pope Leo has criticised leaders who spend billions on wars and said the world is being ravaged by a handful of tyrants in unusually forced comments during his visit to Cameroon. Speaking during a tour of a region ravaged by a deadly insurgency, the pontiff blasted those he said manipulated the very name of God for their own gain. The remarks come just days after a high-profile spat with US President Donald Trump, who posted a lengthy attack on the Pope, a vocal critic of the US and Israeli military operation in Iran. The Pope has voiced his concern about Trump's threat that a whole civilization will die if Iran did not agree to US demands to end the war and open the Strait of Hormuz. Turkish police have arrested 162 people accused of posting controversial content online about 2 deadly school shootings which took place this week. They were found to have engaged in posts and activities praising crime and criminals and negatively affecting public order. At least 16 people were injured in a shooting at a high school in the country's southeast on Tuesday, before another 9 were killed in a shooting at another school on Wednesday. Hundreds have gathered near the city's main mosque for the funerals of the young victims, which are being held today. A major fire at one of Australia's 2 oil refineries has been extinguished, but the damage has deepened fears over the nation's petrol supplies amid a global fuel crunch. Emergency crews rushed to Viva's Corio oil refinery, southwest of Melbourne, just before midnight local time, after reports of explosions and flames. The blaze was put out on Thursday after burning for 13 hours. No one was injured. The refinery, which produces 50% of Victoria's fuel and 10% of the nation's, is still partially operational, but the government has warned of impacts to petrol production.
In respect of count 1,
leading South African opposition politician Julius Malema has been sentenced to 5 years after being found guilty of the illegal possession of a gun and firing it in public. But the magistrate allowed the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters and MP to appeal against the verdict and sentencing, meaning that he will not immediately be taken to prison. Earlier, standing in court in a dark suit and red tie, Malema showed little emotion as he was read out the sentence, even though his political future was at stake. China's economy has grown faster than expected in the first 3 months of the year, even as countries around the world feel the impact of the US-Israel war with Iran. Gross domestic product rose by 5% in the period, compared to a year earlier, according to official data. Economists had expected the figure to come in around 4.8%. That came despite the conflict in the Middle East, which started on the 28th of February, severely disrupting global energy supplies, with Asian countries hit particularly hard. It also marks the first release of official GDP figures since Beijing cut its annual economic growth target last month to a range of 4.5% to 5%.
For now 10 years, every day for 10 years, I have been bullied and attacked. And I was the most trolled person in the entire world, man or woman.
And the Duchess of Sussex has said that for 10 years she was the most trolled person in the entire world online. Speaking in Melbourne about the harms of social media alongside the Duke of Sussex, Meghan said she was bullied every day for a decade and that tech companies were not incentivised to stop their platforms being misused. The couple are in Australia on a 4-day tour as non-working royals and used a meeting on Thursday with representatives of a mental health programme to voice their support for the country's under-16 social media ban. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.